I was driving from Indianapolis to Pittsburgh after spending Thanksgiving with family. The trip wasn't supposed to be difficult. I'd made it several times before. Leave after dinner, drive through the night, get home before sunrise. Simple. At least that was the plan. Around 1:15 a.m., somewhere in rural Ohio, I hit something in the road. To this day, I still don't know exactly what it was. Maybe debris from a truck, maybe part of a tire. Whatever it was, I felt the impact immediately. Thump. The steering wheel jerked violently. The car swerved. A warning light flashed across the dashboard, then another. Within seconds, I knew something was wrong. Very wrong. I managed to pull onto the shoulder near an exit ramp before the vehicle completely lost power. Steam started rising from beneath the hood. The engine shut itself down, and suddenly I was stranded. The area around me looked almost deserted. No businesses, no houses, no gas stations, just a dark stretch of interstate cutting through endless fields. I grabbed my phone immediately. Thankfully, I still had service. Roadside assistance estimated about 70 minutes. Not great, but manageable. So I locked the doors and settled in to wait. For the first 30 minutes, nothing happened. A few trucks passed. A couple cars. Then silence. I remember scrolling through my phone trying to stay awake. At some point I checked the clock. 2:03 a.m. Still no tow truck. Then headlights appeared behind me. Bright yellow lights. A tow truck. I felt immediate relief. Finally, the truck pulled onto the shoulder behind my vehicle. The driver stepped out. Reflective vest. Work boots. Flashlight. Everything looked completely normal. The guy approached my window and smiled. Middle-aged. Short beard. Friendly face. Exactly what you'd expect. I lowered the window slightly. You waiting on roadside assistance? I nodded. The man smiled. Good. That's me. I remember feeling relieved instantly. The guy even knew my first name. That made everything seem legitimate. He asked me to step out so he could inspect the vehicle. Nothing about the interaction seemed suspicious. At least not initially. Then he said something strange. Leave your bags. I looked at him. What? The man pointed toward the back seat. We'll get those later. That immediately felt weird. The bags contained my laptop. My clothes. Everything. I told him I'd rather bring them. The man's smile faded slightly. Not completely. Just enough. Trust me. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. Then another thing hit me. The company logo on the truck looked wrong. Not fake exactly. Just cheap. Like a decal somebody printed themselves. The more I looked at it, the more uncomfortable I became. Then I noticed there was no company phone number anywhere on the vehicle. Most tow trucks have them. This one didn't. I asked for identification. The man's expression changed immediately. For maybe 1 second, I saw genuine irritation. Then the smile returned. He reached toward his pocket. Stopped. Then laughed. Forgot it in the truck. At that moment, every alarm bell in my head started going off. The guy was standing maybe 3 feet from me. Close enough that I could smell cigarette smoke on his jacket. And suddenly I didn't want to get out of my car anymore. I told him I'd wait inside until he retrieved his ID. The man nodded slowly, then walked back toward the tow truck. But instead of grabbing identification, he climbed inside and sat there, watching me. Minutes passed. Neither of us moved. The entire situation felt bizarre. Then another set of headlights appeared. A second tow truck. The moment I saw it, my heart skipped. Because this truck looked different. Newer. Larger. Clearly marked. The second truck pulled in behind the first. The driver jumped out immediately. And everything changed. The man from the first tow truck looked terrified. Not nervous. Terrified. He started his engine instantly. Then drove away. Fast. The second driver watched him leave. Then turned toward me. And said something that made my blood run cold. How long's he been here? I explained everything. The guy listened quietly. Then shook his head. That wasn't us. My stomach dropped. The actual roadside assistance driver showed me identification immediately. Everything checked out. Real company. Real dispatcher. Real assignment. Then he told me something I wish I'd never heard. Apparently there had been reports across multiple states involving fake tow operators targeting stranded drivers. The criminals monitored highways looking for disabled vehicles, then arrived before legitimate assistance. Sometimes they stole property. Sometimes they stole cars. In a few cases, people vanished entirely. The tow truck driver said police were already investigating similar incidents. But nobody knew exactly how many individuals were involved. And nobody knew how they obtained information about stranded motorists so quickly. That should have been the end of the story. It wasn't, because things got much worse. The real tow truck loaded my vehicle and drove me toward a repair facility roughly 30 minutes away. Everything seemed normal. Until we stopped for fuel. The driver went inside to pay. I stayed in the passenger seat. While sitting there, I happened to glance across the parking lot, and my heart stopped. The fake tow truck. It sat near the edge of the station. Dark, motionless, watching. The same vehicle, the same driver. I knew it immediately. For several seconds I couldn't move. The driver inside wasn't even trying to hide. He was staring directly toward us, waiting. The real tow operator returned a minute later. I pointed immediately. The second he looked over, the fake truck pulled away. Gone. Just like that. The tow operator called police. But once again, nobody found the truck. No license plate. No registration. Nothing. The entire thing felt surreal, like a nightmare. I eventually reached a hotel around dawn. Exhausted. Shaken. Ready for the night to finally be over. Then something happened that still terrifies me. Around 8 a.m., I checked into my room, dropped my bags, and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message contained only 6 words. You should have taken the ride. I stared at the screen for what felt like forever. Then another message appeared. Maybe next time. My blood ran cold instantly. Nobody should have had my number. Nobody. Not the fake driver. Not anyone. I showed the messages to police later that day. Investigators attempted tracing the number. Nothing. Burner phone. Never activated again. No records. No leads. Nothing. To this day, nobody knows who the fake tow truck driver actually was. Nobody knows why he targeted stranded motorists. And nobody knows how he got my phone number. But every time I think about that night, one detail keeps bothering me. When I first asked for identification, the man didn't seem worried. He seemed confident, almost like he expected me to get out of the car eventually, like he'd done it before, many times, and maybe, most people never questioned him. I should have kept driving. That's the thought I keep coming back to every time I remember that night. Because if I had driven another 30 seconds without stopping, I never would have gotten involved. And I never would have spent the next 4 hours wondering whether I was about to die. Back in the summer of 2020, I was driving from Nashville, Tennessee to Little Rock, Arkansas. I worked in medical equipment sales at the time, which meant long hours on the road. Most of my driving happened during the day. But this particular trip got delayed after a meeting ran much longer than expected. By the time I got on the interstate, it was already close to 9 p.m. At first, everything felt normal. The weather was clear. Traffic was moderate. The drive was uneventful. But around midnight, things started changing. The highway became emptier. The exits became farther apart. And eventually I found myself driving through long stretches of road with almost nobody around. I remember checking the clock and seeing 12:47 a.m. I still had nearly 2 hours left. That's when I saw her. A woman standing beside the shoulder. Alone. Waving both arms. At first I assumed there had been an accident. Maybe her car was nearby. Maybe she needed help. Then I noticed something strange. There wasn't a vehicle anywhere. No headlights. No hazard lights. Nothing. Just a woman standing beside the interstate. The second I passed her, I felt guilty. What if she genuinely needed help? What if something terrible had happened? I drove another quarter mile before finally pulling over. I hated myself almost immediately for doing it. The woman started running toward my car. Fast. Much faster than I expected. When she reached the passenger side, she looked exhausted. Mid-20s maybe. Dark hair. Gray hoodie. Breathing hard. She knocked on the window. I lowered it slightly. The woman immediately said, "Please help me." I asked what happened. The woman looked over her shoulder toward the darkness behind her. Then back at me. "He left me." I remember feeling confused. "What do you mean?" "My boyfriend." The woman pointed toward the highway. "We were fighting." She looked genuinely upset. Her eyes were red. Her voice shook. Everything seemed believable. Then she asked, "Can I use your phone?" I handed her mine without really thinking. The woman dialed a number, waited, then hung up. No answer. At this point I still felt bad for her. But something about the situation felt off. I couldn't explain why. Then I noticed something strange. The woman never actually looked scared. Upset? Yes. Nervous? Definitely. But not scared. Not like somebody abandoned on an interstate after midnight should be. Then she asked, "Can you give me a ride?" The question immediately made me uncomfortable. I asked where she needed to go. The woman pointed vaguely ahead. Just the next town. Maybe 15 miles. Not far. Still, every warning I'd ever heard about picking up strangers started running through my head. I told her I wasn't comfortable doing that. The woman's expression changed instantly. Not angry, not emotional, just cold. Like a switch had flipped. For a second she simply stared at me. Then she smiled, and that smile sent chills down my spine, because it looked completely different from every expression she'd shown before. Then headlights appeared. Behind us. Fast. Very fast. A pickup truck. The woman turned toward it immediately. And that's when everything clicked. The truck wasn't surprising her. She was expecting it. My stomach dropped. The pickup slowed as it approached. The woman stepped away from my vehicle, then looked back at me, still smiling. The truck pulled onto the shoulder roughly 50 yards behind us. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, then another, then another. 3 men total, all walking toward us. My heart immediately started racing. The woman calmly backed away from my car, like she was making room. One of the men yelled, "Everything okay over there?" The tone wasn't friendly. It sounded rehearsed, like they already knew the answer. At that moment, every survival instinct I had screamed at me to leave. I didn't hesitate. I put the car in drive and accelerated immediately. The woman jumped backward. One of the men started running. I heard someone yelling behind me. Then I was back on the interstate. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the steering wheel steady. I remember checking my mirrors repeatedly, expecting the pickup truck to appear. For several minutes it didn't. Then I saw headlights. Far behind me. Closing distance. Fast. The pickup. And it wasn't alone. Another vehicle followed behind it. An SUV. Both vehicles accelerated aggressively. The realization hit me instantly. They were chasing me. I called 911 while driving. The dispatcher answered immediately. I explained everything as quickly as I could. The woman, the men, the vehicles. The dispatcher stayed calm. She instructed me to continue toward a larger town approximately 20 miles ahead. Meanwhile, the pickup kept getting closer. At one point it pulled beside me. The passenger rolled down his window. A man leaned halfway outside, pointing, yelling something I couldn't hear. Then he made a motion with his hand. "Pull over." I ignored him. The truck dropped behind me again. Then the SUV moved beside me. Its windows were tinted too dark to see inside. The vehicle stayed there for nearly 30 seconds, matching my speed exactly. The entire situation felt unreal, like something from a movie. Then the dispatcher suddenly said, "Units are on the way." That was the first moment I felt any relief. A few minutes later, flashing lights appeared ahead. The second the pickup spotted them, everything changed. The truck swerved across 2 lanes, took an exit, and disappeared. The SUV followed immediately. Both vehicles vanished before police could reach them. Officers searched the area extensively. Nothing. No vehicles. No suspects. Nothing. But one trooper said something that stuck with me. Apparently there had been several similar reports over the previous year, always involving a stranded woman, always late at night, always targeting drivers traveling alone. Nobody was ever arrested. Nobody was ever identified. But according to investigators, they believed the group specifically targeted travelers who looked sympathetic enough to stop. And hearing that still makes me uncomfortable. Because if I'd opened the passenger door, even once, I honestly don't know how that night would have ended. The trip wasn't supposed to be difficult. Just under 8 hours. I had done similar drives before. The problem was that I left much later than planned. Instead of getting on the road around noon, I didn't leave Denver until nearly 6 p.m. By the time I crossed into western Kansas, it was after midnight. And anyone who's driven through rural Kansas at night knows how isolated it feels. Miles of farmland, tiny towns separated by long stretches of darkness. Almost no traffic. Around 1:30 a.m., I noticed my fuel gauge dropping faster than normal. At first I thought it was a faulty reading. Then the check engine light appeared. A few minutes later the car started vibrating. Not violently, just enough to notice. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter. The vibration got worse. Then the engine sputtered. A second later, everything went quiet. The car died. Completely. I barely managed to coast onto the shoulder. The moment I stopped moving, an overwhelming silence settled around me. No nearby houses. No businesses. No traffic. Nothing. Just darkness stretching in every direction. I pulled out my phone immediately. 1 bar of service. Barely. I called roadside assistance. The operator informed me a tow truck would arrive within approximately 90 minutes. Not ideal, but manageable. I locked the doors and prepared to wait. For about 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then headlights appeared in my mirror. A pickup truck. At first I felt relieved. The driver slowed and pulled onto the shoulder behind me. A man climbed out. Tall. Heavyset. Baseball cap. Work boots. The kind of guy you'd expect to see on a construction site. He approached my window and knocked twice. I lowered the glass slightly. The man smiled. Car trouble? I explained the situation. He nodded, then looked down the empty highway. You're a long way from help. Something about the way he said it made me uncomfortable. Not enough to panic. Just enough to notice. I told him roadside assistance was already coming. The man seemed disappointed. Not obviously. Just briefly. Then he smiled again. Good. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Then he pointed toward a set of distant lights, maybe half a mile away. A cluster of buildings barely visible beyond the fields. You see that? I nodded. That's my property. The man paused. If it gets cold, you're welcome to wait there. I thanked him but declined. The man nodded, then returned to his truck. At first I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't, because 10 minutes later, he came back, this time carrying coffee. He handed me a disposable cup through the window. Figured you might need it. I hesitated. The man laughed. Don't worry, it's not poisoned. I laughed awkwardly too, but I didn't drink it. The man stayed beside my car for several minutes making conversation, then eventually left again. And honestly, I started feeling bad for judging him. He seemed nice, helpful, friendly. Then I noticed something strange. His truck never left. Instead of driving away, it sat parked farther down the shoulder, waiting. Its headlights remained off, the silhouette barely visible in darkness. For the next 30 minutes, the truck stayed there, not moving, just sitting. At one point, I actually considered calling him back over because I felt guilty. Then my phone buzzed. A text from roadside assistance. Tow truck delayed. Additional 60 minutes. My stomach dropped. Now I was looking at roughly 2 more hours. Alone. On an empty highway. The temperature had started dropping significantly too. That's when I made the mistake. I called the man. Or more accurately, I walked toward his truck.